Hello, everybody, and welcome to the NFC Transfer Room live stream. We just lost Hassan just as we were going live. That's pretty typical. But hope everybody is doing well today. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Stephen, and with me I have Paul and I have Jonathan as well. Is it Jonathan or Jonathan? This is my first time on with
Jonathan works fine. Dan said
no problem.
Jonathan yesterday, so
no problem. So this is obviously Jonathan, one of Jonathan's first streams. He was on with us yesterday. Had a little bit of debut nerves, but I think he did very well. I'm sure everybody else would agree with me. Before we get into everything, just make sure you to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. And if you're currently watching over on Twitter at the moment, or X as it's known now, make sure to jump over to our YouTube page and hit like and subscribe for all of the content that we have there as well. The link will be in our bio on the Twitter page as well. But without further delay, we might as well jump into the news, because there's been a lot of news that has come out in relation to prices, players going places, who's going where. We obviously have the Luis Diaz news that broke very recently that he's waiting for Barcelona, and that Barcelona will be looking, and we have Hassan back. Thank God. There we go. That's perfect. That he'd be waiting for Barcelona, and then that Barcelona are looking to fund with the sale of Rafinha, who's apparently looking to go for about 90 million euro. Where and why, I don't know. But lots of interesting developments. We obviously had Endo as well talking about the sixth position and whether or not we should go there. And then we have Conor Gallagher, for some reason, replacing Trent Alexander-Arnold in the midfield for England for the game against Slovenia that they're playing tonight, in what realistically is a must-win game for them, which is madness. Absolutely mad.
That's madness.
It really is. I suppose we'll start on that since we're already here. And Trent being dropped. Trent, over the past two games, has played in a double pivot role alongside Declan Rice, where they've then had a front line of Foden on the left-hand side, who's not a left winger at all. They've then had Bellingham in the 10, which is fine. That's where he's supposed to be, or he could be in Trent's position. Either one is fine. And then you have Bukayo Saka on the right wing, and then you have Harry Kane up front. And it's just Bellingham is a box-to-box, essentially. He's not an out-and-out attacking midfielder. He can play through. He can play either side 8. He can play. Either he can then play as he was doing it for Real Madrid, where he's basically playing a 9, and he was also playing a 10. So there's no real issue with Jude Bellingham there for myself. It's the issue really comes in with Foden. I don't understand why Foden is on that left hand side, because Foden likes to cut inside and stand at the 10 position and want the ball to his feet. Kane, for some reason, loves to try and play the Bobby Firmino role and drop into a false 9 and come back into the midfield and receive the ball to his feet. And then you have Bukayo Saka, who hilariously was the only person who made a run to break the back line, which Trent then placed the ball at his feet from 50 meters away and then got subbed off 2 seconds later, which to me boggles my mind. And in 53 minutes, he made the most line-breaking passes and created the most chances against Denmark in the draw that they had. And then I said it at the start of this tournament that Trent was going to be made the scapegoat. And if they did badly, all of the blame would fall at Trent's feet. And that's where they put it. And every pundit did it, and the whole lot. And Wayne Rooney said it, and all his managerial expertise of bringing Birmingham from 6th to 22nd in 15 games. And then Gary Neville, we all know what he did at Valencia. Roy Keane as well. As much as I love him as a player and as an Irishman, he's a terrible manager. And it's just the only people who seem to be supporting Trent in the midfield position are those playing in midfield with him. Bellingham and Rice came out today and absolutely spoke praises of him. But Paul, I'll throw it over to you first. Trent is being dropped, as per David Ornstein, for Conor Gallagher. For a team that has accumulated less shots than both Georgia and Scotland, who have both been abysmally woeful, unfortunately, in this Euros, considering the talent that England have, and they've only generated that many shots, is this Trent's fault? Is it a system fault? Is it the players' fault? Or is it a combination of everything? Or does the blame land at Southgate and his tactics?
Southgate has to take the bulk of the blame. Now, There are two ways, in my opinion, the team can be set up, and neither of these two ways includes Conor Gallagher. The fact is, Gallagher is the least talented of all the midfield players in the squad right now, in my opinion. Yes, he runs around a bit, quite a bit, makes himself a nuisance.
Okay.
And, but in terms of natural ability, he can't hold a candle to even the other two young guys, right? So I don't see why everybody's all about this Gallagher. The two options he has, in my opinion, is if either use Trent to the double pivot like he did in the first two games, with Trent more on the right side, and then drop Foden and play Gordon on the left wing to create that width. And it's not crazy or outrageous to suggest that Foden be dropped. The fact of the matter is, if you're going to play Trent on the right side of the double pivot, you can only play one number 10. That system only called for one number 10. And if you have two number 10s, then it means that one of them needs to go on the bench, right? It doesn't matter if you have two top players, if they can't play the same position. So there's nothing wrong in putting Foden on the bench if it means that the team is more balanced. The other option, if you don't want to do that, or if you believe that Foden is undroppable, and then you're going to sacrifice Trent, then you have to revert to a 4-3-3 with Rice as the single pivot, being helped by Jude, and then you can play Foden in his traditional number 10, and then you play Gordon on the left side. But it's kind of pointless to have Trent sitting on the right side of a double pivot, and there is nobody on the left side to accept those traditional long passes that he is known for. And that is the reason why everybody's clamoring to have Trent in the team. You want Trent into the team because he's the one that can bypass the midfield and get the ball in attacking areas. But then you're going to not give him the option to make those passes. And that's crazy, especially when you have Trippier on the left-hand side. And another thing, too, that I think Southgate is kind of mad. This squad have five right backs. Because Trent, Trippier, and Kyle Walker, it's three right backs starting. You have Joe Gomez on the bench, and you have Ezra Konsa, who can also play right back. So you cannot tell me that Trippier is a better left back. Being right-footed is a better left back than, say, the guy from Crystal Palace. What's his name? Tyrese Mitchell. Right. Or even a guy like Rico Henry. So you knew that it's a very good chance that you will not have Luke Shaw available to you. But yet still you take five right back and no left back. That just doesn't make sense. So it's clear that Southgate has no clue what he's doing. So yes, they're going to drop Trent because Trent is the scapegoat. They're going to play Conor Gallagher and going to run around like a headless chicken and be busy and get a couple of yellow cards here or there and put in a tackle, and people are going to say, hey, he is whatever. But the manager is clueless because the fact is England's strength is in the attacking area. So he has no clue because right now he's playing a double pivot with a back four that's 6 defenders and nobody on the left-hand side. You cannot win Euros like that.
No, I don't disagree with you. It's shocking to see how a team that is ranked 4th in the world by FIFA rankings has struggled to beat two teams that haven't even cracked the top 20. And it just and that's on managerial prowess. That has nothing got, because if you looked at in the 15 minutes after England scored, their average position, their most advanced player was Bukayo Saka, who was essentially in the CDM's position, if not even deeper than that. And that's their most advanced player in the 15 minutes between when England scored and when Denmark equalized. Jonathan, it's mind-boggling to see how mismanaged the talent on this England squad is. Trent being one of many, but you then have no fit left backs essentially because Kieran Trippier seems to be harbouring a calf injury, and then you have Trent being mismanaged. You have Foden being shoehorned into a left winger position when that's not his position at all. You have Harry Kane up front who doesn't seem to want to run at all, but yet it's just there for the sake of being there. And people wonder why England don't win tournaments. Do you feel that Trent is being made out to be a bit of a scapegoat in this, or do you feel that his performances over the last two games have been maybe lackluster enough for Gareth Southgate to pull the plug on what he's called an experiment?
Good question. I think Trent he's not been at his best, to be honest, but that's because of the players playing in front of him. You have Jude in the 10, Foden going into the 10 role, and as you said, Kane trying to play like a prime Bobby Firmino. That will only make Saka the only player who can break the lines to. I would maybe love to see Gomez play at left back instead of Trippier. He has played there for us. He has showed that he can play and have mastered the left back role, even though he is a right-footed player. And I think give Kobe Manu the chance if you're gonna drop Trent. Gallagher has shown time and time again he ain't good enough. Give the young lads a chance at least in these games.
Yeah, I don't see the thing about the only reason I don't think he will give them a chance is because England have put themselves into a position now where this is a must-win game, meaning the likes of Adam Wharton and the likes of Kobe Manu will not see another minute of game time for the rest of the tournament. They may as well just not have come because of the calamity that was what happened to Denmark. This is now a must-win game. If they won that game against Denmark, they could have rested whoever they wanted and probably scraped a draw and gotten through on 7 points. But now, because they're only on 4 points and are in a must-win to properly qualify, if they finish in second, they go and they play Germany, who they'll get pumped by.
Yeah.
If they finish first, they play one of the third best finishing teams. And if they then win that game, they either play Switzerland or Italy, essentially, because that's how that group is playing out. Because Spain is probably that group one, barring a massive collapse in the last game. Spain is that group one. Hassan, it seems to be one of these things that it's just, we've seen this story before. Trent is just not included or done properly in English football. He's and people wonder why he doesn't want to play under Southgate, and people wonder why players don't want to play under Southgate and his team. We obviously seen the likes of Ben White turn around and say, I'm not going anywhere near that. Now, that was probably not specifically Gareth Southgate, but it was his team that he refused to go near because of fallings out. Like, you've Jamie here mentioning that I don't know how Southgate can't get the best out of Trent. He's one of the most talented players of our generation, and he's only going to get better. The problem with that, Jamie, is by the time the next tournament comes around, he's going to be 27, and by the time the next Euros comes around, he's going to be 29. He's maybe got 3 more tournaments in him before he's gone from international football, and they've already squandered 4 tournaments with him and 4 tournaments under Gareth Southgate over the past 8 years. So, Hassan, is Southgate actually clueless? Because it seems to be. He doesn't have the balls to make a decision and pull somebody off like Foden, who's been abysmal. Jude Bellingham and Declan Rice had terrible games the last day. Harry Kane is just a ghost. But he seems then to take off the most creative player. It's absolutely astonishing. Do you think, could this be the final tour of Gareth Southgate, and maybe we see somebody come in that'll be able to utilise Trent and other Liverpool players like Harvey Elliott, like Curtis Jones, like Jarell Quansah, like Joe Gomez, because we have a lot of players there that could have really benefited this England team.
Yeah, I think it's a disaster for England that they have chosen a manager who has no pedigree. He was a normal player in his time. He played at Middlesbrough, I think, and he has not been managed by some great managers himself. And his experience is just with the national team. Without it, I think he was just as assistant manager. at Middlesbrough, or maybe he managed sometimes there. These players are managed by world-class managers from City, Liverpool. They are used to get tactical knowledge from the very best. Now they come in the England setup and they are managed by someone who is very limited in his knowledge and in his experience. So they suffer. I don't know how Cole Palmer, Wharton, Menu, they cannot get into the team because they were the most informed players coming into this tournament. Uh, as you mentioned, that Foden likes to come inside. Kane wants to get back, and he needs some really athletic and powerful runners ahead of him. And there is no one, maybe just Saka, and Saka finishing wise is not at the elite level. So I think this is a calamity for England that they are trying uh, to go in the tournaments without any uh, and I don't think England will win ever without any world class manager managing them with all these elite players.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I can't see anything. Um, Hilliard, I have to disagree with you on this. He's not a midfielder or a number 6. He can be in a double pivot. It is very, very evident to see that he can be in a double pivot. If you have somebody like a Rice beside him or like a more defensively sound midfielder beside him, he can very easily sit in that double pivot and be a deep line playmaker. Him playing in a double pivot for Liverpool is very simply the same thing that what he's doing now. However, he would have players that would be running in behind. If he had Gordon on the left wing, Ollie Watkins up front, Jude Bellingham in front of him as the 10, and Bukayo Saka on the right wing, you have a very, very, very penetrative and high pressing front line there that would benefit Trent massively.
Agreed.
Similarly with Liverpool, you have Mo Salah on the right wing, you have Luis Diaz, Cody Gakpo on the left wing, you then have Harvey Elliott or Dominic Szoboszlai in front of him, and then you have Darwin Núñez as the 9 breaking the lines every single time. The problem is the pressing that comes with this English team is non-existent because Harry Kane doesn't press. Pressing starts with your striker. Harry Kane is press allergic, if you want to put that sort of a terminology on it. Your point of moving him from an inverted right back is essentially moving him to the same position he's in now while sacrificing somebody from the back 4, which is just complete. It's the same thing with just extra steps. That's why playing in a 4-2-3-1 allows him to sit there and advance forward while having 5 players behind him in a defensive CDM along with a back 4, and then you have Conor Bradley there that can hold width on the right hand side, or you have Andy Robertson on the left hand side that can hold width as well. And then your CDM can then drop back into a back 3. Then if one of the fullbacks goes forward, it allows Trent to then be more creative.
You have a point or not, Stephen?
How does he have a point? It's the same thing with extra steps, inverting him.
Yes, but let's assume that Southgate was brave enough to make this move. Replace Trippier with Joe Gomez. Hear me out. Then drop Walker, play Trent at right back.
Yeah.
When we are in possession, Trent does what he does for Liverpool, in that Gomez as left back will kind of drop deeper, more like a back 3, and then Trent beside Rice. What that would do is you would have had that extra player, because then you would have had Gordon playing on the left side in that setup, because you would have had that extra player. So
but that's a different formation, Paul. Are you saying a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3?
No, it would be a 4-3-3. It would be a
4-3-3. Same as a right back. He's not a lone 6 whatsoever. Completely agree with you on that. But if you wanted to play him in a double pivot, inverting him from in a 4-2-3-1, there's no point in Trent being inverted when he would have started in the double pivot position anyway, is more my point. In a 4-3-3, 100% agree with you. Allow him to invert, make that box midfield, and you overload the midfield, and that works against some teams. But then you also then have to factor in the low block. I don't disagree with you on that, Paul. And Hellier has a point in that he plays from right back in a 4-3-3. However, I think if a defensively sound CDM is beside him, in a 4-2-3-1, then it's the exact same thing again, and you then have a back four behind him rather than using a back three, rather than having to make Gomez come over and just it's the in a 4-3-3. It's the exact same thing with extra steps. But I agree, he can't be a lone six. I've never said he could be a lone six.
And the 4-2-3-1 could work if they had like Luke Shaw was fit and was going down the flank to create that width, because two things would happen. One, it would give Trent an outlet to go with the football, but another thing too, it would draw the defense over to that side, which would create more space for the players in the middle.
Yeah, I don't see the thing in a 4-3-3. You need a hold width because your midfield is very narrow, and you don't have essentially a left midfielder or a right midfielder. There's too much space there to occupy, and your wingers are already too far forward to do it. Hence why your fullbacks have to do it, which is where Helior is mentioning here a 4-4-2, where he'd be a right midfielder. It's essentially what he's doing in the fullback position, or when he inverts in. In a 4-3-3, Trent is a right back. In a 4-2-3-1, Trent is in that double pivot because you're already putting him into that position anyway. And Jamie mentions here as the number 6. Excuse me. I don't think you're using Trent's athletic ability, which adds a lot to his game. I completely agree with you, which is why in a 4-2-3-1, you then have a defensive 6 that's there that allows Trent to push forward and sit alongside the other number 10. If you have two, so then you would essentially create a 4-1-4-1, for lack of a better term. So it'd be the back four, Rice, or your defensive CDM. You then have 2 10s either side of Bellingham or Foden and Trent. That would cause havoc. And then you have your 2 wingers that can hold with Saka, Gordon, and then you have your striker, which I think it should be Ollie Watkins. I don't know how Harry Kane made it into that squad. He done numbers with Bayern Munich, but you need to bring in players that will press, and Harry Kane is not that. Teams like France, Spain, Italy will bend England over and absolutely ruin them. But it's just one of them things. No, I don't think I mentioned England were playing tonight. No, it's they're playing tomorrow. Nobody who's playing tonight. So who is playing at 8 o'clock? Spain is playing at 8 o'clock, and Albania and Croatia and Italy are both playing at 8 o'clock. So yeah, it's essentially we're going to find out tonight who England will face if they get through the first round of the knockout stages, if they win their group. If they don't win their group and finish second, they're going and playing Germany and they're going being sent home. The Scottish team is basically sending the plane back for them at that point. Paul here mentioning, no, you're all right, James. You're all right. Paul mentioned, I would say Gordon and Palmer would rather be on the bench. What a waste of talent. It is, but I think at this point, like Palmer's not getting a look in that squad whatsoever, unless he starts him over Saka. And I don't think Southgate has the balls to do that. He doesn't have the balls to drop Foden either, which is the point we're trying to make. It seems to be manager ineptitude. But I think in a Liverpool squad, Trent can sit in that double pivot very comfortably. Very, very comfortably. But we've nearly talked about that now for half an hour. We could probably talk about it for another half an hour. Before we move on to the next topic, we just want to say thank you so much for everybody that's watching so far. Make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. And also, if you're currently watching on Twitter or X, make sure to jump over to our YouTube channel and make sure you can jump in on the comments then as well, so you can have your say with ourselves. And our link is in the bio of our Twitter page, so make sure to jump over to that. Helior mentioned in here, Southgate can in his defensive world only see 2 either options, either a 4-2-3-1 as he plays now without another proper 6, or 3 central defenders and 2 fullbacks. Essentially, yeah, Helior, he seems to be very much about 15 years behind us in footballing philosophy and loves to play like the Italians do with a back 5 or a ridiculously defensive. We score 1 goal and then we park the bus. It is quite bonkers how he plays in that in the modern day and age when you have teams pumping other teams 4-0 and always being on the attack. 1 goal is never enough. And if any game was to show that Denmark game, their CDM that plays for Sporting Lisbon, I can't remember his name, the Danish guy that plays for
Julmlo.
Yes, that'll be him, Jonathan. Thank you. He's a serious player, and I would love if we ended up getting him. But we're going to move on to some other topics, and one of them is the Calafiori, links. Initially, it was shown that we were very much interested in. Richard Hughes wanted him when he was at Bournemouth, as in when he was sporting director at Bournemouth. And he has an encyclopedic knowledge of the Italian landscape of football. So it really would not be shocking if these links were proper. However, earlier on today, it was reported from Sasha Tarivioli that Juventus have essentially struck a deal. But that was conflicting to previous reports that were brought out that Bologna, because of the whole Thiago Motta situation, didn't want to do any business with Juventus. Maybe something was a breakthrough, maybe it wasn't. But then Gazzetta d'Italia, one of the biggest newspapers in Italy, essentially came out and said that because of Bologna's asking price, which we believed prior to this to be about 25 million pounds, was too rich for their blood. Jonathan, there seems to be a lot of back and forth. It's very much he said, she said, is he, will he, won't he? You kind of just at this point, we're 8 days away from training camp opening up. Can we get a fucking sign in at this point, please?
I think it's been very mixed messages from Liverpool as well about the centre back spot signing this season. It looks like we are losing out on Euro, and now Calafiori. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Calafiori.
So I would love him. He's versatile. He played left back in Roma, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's big. He's young, but again, if Juventus gets the deal done, which I think they will do if they put the money on the table, even though the relationship between Bologna and Juventus is bad, they can't say no to 60 million for him. It's good money. But I would love him. I would love Euro. And right now I would take just a signing before preseason. So Arne could get his twist on the team.
Exactly.
We were also linked to Geritudo when Arne was unveiled. So I just hope to see a centre back or a number 6 signing, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think Paul mentions a good point here that the transfer market won't really start until July. You see a lot of teams at the moment making an awful lot of movement prior to the deadline of June 30th, trying to balance books and whatnot. But for the clubs that don't need to balance books, i.e. us, you probably won't see any movement from us until July, like maybe late July when preseason is about to start. Because first of all, we have the competition when the Euros, and then the Olympics is straight after that, and some players will be going to that. Michael Elise is one of them, who will essentially not be around for the entirety of preseason and will miss probably the first 2 weeks of the Premier League season and may end up missing a week of the Bundesliga now that he's gone to Bayern. Helier mentioned in here about, or Jamie's mentioned that it's very hard for it to convince Italian players to come to England. And Helier mentioned that Liverpool have a couple of decent pasta restaurants, but I doubt it would be enough to bring an Italian to Liverpool. Paul, realistically, if you're in Italy, you're around the sun, you're around the beautiful men and women that are there, the beautiful food, the beautiful scenery, the culture, the art, the music, everything, and you get told, do you want to come to Liverpool to the wet, the rain, and maybe one Gino D'Acampo restaurant for Italian food? Realistically, it doesn't sound like the most promising of prospects, and historically Italian players really haven't left Italy all that much. Do you think there's any weight behind these rumours, considering Richard Hughes' affinity for Italian footballers and his knowledge of it as well?
I think we're interested because they obviously see the talent in the guy, but at those prices, I doubt it. We are looking for depth at the centre-back position, and we all agree that a left footer who can do some minutes at left back is probably the ideal profile. The guy is big, strong. I think he's like 6'2", and he's young.
Yeah,
he played left back earlier in his career, so it's I can see why we might be interested in him. But then for that profile, somebody who's going to be essentially be a verge backup, at least in the short term, I'm just not sure if Liverpool is willing to plunk 50, 60 million pounds for that player. I mean, it's not my money, and I think he would do well at Liverpool. So don't get me wrong, I would like him. But I just don't see it happening for that kind of money. To me, if Liverpool is going to spend that kind of money, 60 million, 60, 70 million, you think that would be somebody that would be walking into the first team.
Yeah.
Another thing too, why probably this is one of the reasons why Italian players struggle in the Premier League. If you notice, if you sign a Dutch player or a French player, even though they probably have never lived in the UK, they seem to speak passable, if not decent, English, right? Because I was even surprised, even Mbappe, who has never lived in an English country, his English is almost as good as mine, right? Cody, all of these guys speak English, while Italian players seem to struggle with the language, right? And
I've never seen many Italian players struggle. Like I've been to Italy a couple of times, and English over there is second to none that I found myself. Maybe there's some outliers in that, but I don't think maybe we just don't see enough of them in the Premier League that we'd be able to build enough of a sight in them. But when I've been to Italy myself, and I've been to some really rural places of Italy and like Sardinia and stuff, English is no problem for them people. I think it's taught in schools as a second language. So I don't think the language barrier might be an issue, Paul. I think maybe the culturally and that sort of a thing. And like, if you think about it, you're sat in an Italian summer and then you come over here and it's all of a sudden 10 degrees Celsius colder and it's raining and it's wet and it's miserable. I think that might have more of an effect on people than the language, to be perfectly honest with you.
But as I said, I would like it to happen, but I just don't. I'm kind of wondering if it makes sense because when we heard about it about a week, 10 days ago, we were hearing like 25, 30 million. Now we are hearing 50, 60 million. For that price, I think there are better options available, or more proven options, because it's kind of tough to buy talent at that price for a guy who has just had 1 year. Yes, he's in the Italian national team, but this is his first year. So I just struggle to see it happening at that price.
Yeah. I think as Hillier mentions here, it is Edwards is back behind the scenes because there's not a peak. There's nothing concrete coming out of Liverpool. It is very much silence on all fronts.
That I agree with.
And I prefer it this way myself, to be honest, because all like the same as last year. The only one that was really nailed on before anybody really knew about it was Alexi McAllister. Everything else, we all went our separate ways on a Friday and came back on a Monday, and all of a sudden Dominic Szoboszlai was at the club signing a contract. We were like, where the fuck did this come out of? And then the same thing with Ryan Gravenberch. There was links earlier on in the summer, died, and then when all of a sudden within the space of 48 hours, he was signed. Same with Endo, really. Paul mentioning here about the UK weather. It's a couple of polo necks and a windbreaker and a strong umbrella in your sound. Yeah, look, I live in Ireland, so I know exactly what it's like. Hassan, centre backs. Calafiori, Lenny Euro seems to be gone to Real Madrid, but Real Madrid need to move this summer for him, or else he'll end up having to wait a year. And I think he wants to move now, because if he gets injured next year, all of a sudden Real Madrid will just pull that deal. And I think he wants to go this year. So it all hinges on Real Madrid. We then obviously haven't heard anything about the likes of Pacho. We have like Inacio stuff has died down, unfortunately. Then there was obviously Levi Colwill, who seems to not want to go anywhere other than maybe to Bayern to follow Michael Elise. Charlie, who's on with us, mentioned that Murillo, the centre-back for Forest, although for me he's a little bit short. He's scraping 6 foot tall. The Brazilian defender for them, and I think they wanted £70 million for him, which is absolutely bonkers. But of the centre-back market that's there, who do you think is the most likely? Now, obviously, we had the Euro links and that were right on the doorstep of that and waiting for Real Madrid. Pacho seemed to be a sure thing, and then that was gone. And then we had Inacio that seemed to be a sure thing, and now that one's gone. And Levi Colwill has been hot and cold. And now we have Calafiori, who is probably in my own book, because it seems to tick the most boxes, the most likely, because of Hughes wanting him at Bournemouth and him having encyclopedic knowledge of Italian football and Italian players. And on top of that, it seems to make the most sense money-wise and everything. It screams a Michael Edwards laptop signing. But all that aside, put yourself in Michael Edwards' shoes. Who are you going for and who are you trying to push for?
For me, as you said, the Calafiori links makes the most sense because of his profile, because of his experience as a left back, and his physical attributes, his reading of the game. Many people in the last stream also said that he's just emerging, but he had a really good season with Bologna. They have qualified for the Champions League, so he was a really good part of that team. So I think the only thing, as you guys have mentioned, the Italian thing. But I think because of Hughes, we get a certain edge. Maybe he can convince a player like him, maybe speaking to him in Italian. So he can convey, because all the other players we were linked to maybe were too young, and and when they are linked with Real Madrid, it's almost impossible to turn their heads unless they are someone like Harvey Elliott, who are diehard Liverpool fan.
Yeah, it's Paul obviously mentioned one that I completely missed, and I do apologize about that, Paul. How dare I miss your boy in David Hanko himself? I think he's off to Atletico Madrid. That's the only solid option that's been
But he's
revealed
going
for him
to
so far.
Atletico.
Yeah, it's the only one that's been revealed for him.
He would
so
be the
far.
perfect guy.
I think he's just a bit old. I think we'd have to end up replacing him in 2 or 3 years again. And then the problem with that is if you went for somebody that's younger, like Calafiori, Euro, what have you, you then have somebody that could be there for 8 years minimum. I think that's probably the only kicker for that. I don't disagree with you that it'd be a good signing, but I think it's just maybe if he was 2 years younger, I'd be all on board with it. But I just think he's just on the edge of the window, the wrong edge of the window of where we'd be looking for in regards to age, if that makes sense. That's just me. But we've chatted about centre-backs now. We're going to move on very quickly to wingers, essentially, because we have news of Mohammed Kudus' release clause that we all thought was £85 million and has been revealed to be £85 million. And then we also have the fact that Luis Diaz is all but gone to Barcelona, essentially. So the news that we have currently at the moment is Mohammed Kudus' release clause is gone at £85 million. That I don't know if it's this summer or next summer that's kicking in. Paul has said before that it doesn't take it. They normally wouldn't do it after a year, which is he's only been there a year now since he was at Ajax. I don't think it's in this summer. However, with the news with Lucas Paqueta and him essentially probably being banned for life and them losing out on that 85 million quid that they would have gotten from Man City, I don't think they'll settle for a penny less this summer if they were to sell him. And I think they'll end up getting the 85 million next year if he goes on and kicks on again and does the exact same thing that he done this season. Now, I don't know if he will do that because new manager, different system, he may take a step back. Many things could change, and that release clause in a year's time may not be worth its salt. But it's essentially been told that Rafinha will be leaving from Barca. Saudi Arabia is looking to purchase him for anywhere between 80 to 90 million euros.
That's wild.
And Barcelona are looking to... I don't see how that happens either, to be honest with you, Jonathan. It's madness. It's silly money. If he's worth that, Salah's worth 200 million euro, easily. Even with 1 year left in his deal. Even with 6 months left in his deal, Salah will be worth 200 million at that price. And whoever's saying Anthony Gordon 7 can get out of the chat because we're not getting Anthony Gordon for 80 million quid. Go away. With Rafinha going for that price, Barcelona are looking to basically fund the Diaz purchase with 76 million pounds, which to me was about 10 million, 15 million pounds over what I expected to get for him, which I really wouldn't say no because it doubles our money for him straight away. And that could go into funding two wingers. You could, if his wages were any less, Jonathan, I'd agree with you. But he's asking for 300 grand a week, and there is no way on God's green earth he's going to get that at Liverpool as a new guy.
A man can dream.
I know. Look, if his way, see, If his wages could be brought down, then I'd have no problem with it. But if his wages continue to be stuck at, and we've seen what's happened to players that have demanded high wages before. Kepler Thuram rumored to be demanding over £150,000 a week last season, when he was only on about 20,000 or 16,000 euro, while at Nice, all of a sudden now he's only worth £15 million and could be going to Juventus and maybe getting a small increase in his wage rather than a big one. If he had just, we could have turned around and just offered him 100 grand and he might have been okay, and he could have been okay with that. But he just wanted to be greedy, and maybe that's down to him and his father being the agent. But similarly with Nico Williams, because he plays for Athletic Bilbao and they only take players from the Basque regions of Spain and France, the issue then comes in with, because they spend very little on transfer fees, they can absolutely load their squad with massive fees for salaries. Hence why he's already on 200,000 euro a week with Bilbao. He's not going to take a pay cut on that. I know myself and Paul have gone back and forth on that, on bonuses and whatnot, and it could be made up in the aggregate and everything. But it is something that could possibly be done. But Paul, let's throw it over to yourself first on this. With Diaz, this being the most concrete rumor that we've had about somebody leaving, and the ducks all seem to be lining up in a row, and the stars seem to be aligning. It is one of them that might just end up getting over the line. Do you see Diaz going? I know you mentioned earlier in the group chat of Saudi Arabia if they came knocking, but I think if Barca came knocking and Saudi Arabia came knocking, he's still picking Barca. What do you think? Is there any weight behind these rumors of Diaz going? Do you see him going? Do you see us getting 75 million pounds and reinvesting it in wingers? Or what way do you see this playing out?
There has been enough smoke over the past couple of weeks for there to be some fire somewhere. So it's clear to me that Lucho wants the move. Obviously, when he's talking, to the media, he says the right thing, as you expect him to. But it's clear that he wants to go to Barcelona. And I think at this time, if he goes, it will be what we call a win-win situation. Because as we have discussed many times here, I think his salary at Liverpool is an issue compared to the salaries being paid to the other players in the team. If he goes to Barca, that I think his salary will at the very least triple. I can see them paying 150. So that would solve that issue. If we get, I don't think we're going to get 75, 80 million, but even 65 million, I think would be reasonable, because let's face it, he's 27, 30, 28. So that's a factor. We have had him for a few years. So even if we sell him and use that money and invest in someone that's 3, 4, 5 years younger, because the person we're signing does not necessarily have to be an everyday left winger, because we have enough talent in the team in that spot where we can get by without even a direct replacement. So I think it's a win-win situation, because if the guy wants to go and the offer is reasonable, I don't think we're doing anybody favors by sticking out for an extra 5-10 million and let the deal collapse. So I kind of hope it goes through, not because I want to get rid of Lucho, but he clearly wants to go. He's clearly not happy with the salary at Liverpool, and I don't think we're going to triple his salary to keep him. So I say let him go, especially being the fact that that's the one position on the field where we are really covered, left wing. Right, so I think it's going to happen. I don't think we're going to sign Nico Williams again, because his salary is the issue. And even if we can afford to pay, that's not the issue. But just that's not how Liverpool operate. We're not going to take a young 22, 23-year-old and all of a sudden paying him Trent or Van Dijk money. What would that do to the morale of the other players? So that's not going to happen. And with Arsenal sniffing around, they will pay the money. So I don't see. I would much rather we spend the money and back up on the other side, on the right wing. So yes, we have talked so much about Bakayoko. Not sure if it's going to happen, but if we sell Lucha for 60, 70 million, buy Bakayoko for whatever it is, 45, and even if we're paying him 80,000 K a week, that would be a fantastic deal for me, if you ask me. I'm not as high as Mbuemo as some of you guys, but if he comes, he can do a job as well.
Yeah, I think it's I don't disagree with you. It's the way that I think about the Nico Williams deal is if he was told, look, we're not going to pay you. See, the difference is he's getting paid €200,000, which is about £170,000. If you turn around and say we'll pay you £150,000, he's essentially losing about 20 grand a week, which you can very easily make that up in goal bonus, assist bonus, match bonus, win bonus, minutes bonuses, trophy bonuses, international selection bonuses, image rights, jersey sales, like the licensing deals for the likes of video games like FIFA and stuff like that, and any marketing that he's involved in as well around the city. And the fact that he'd be a Spanish player, he'd be one of the very few Spanish players, along with him and Stefan Bajcetic, that'd be in the squad that would be marketed over in that side of the world as well, albeit to very deaf ears, considering it's very hard for a Spanish side to, or an English side to break into Spain in regards to fans wise. But it's an interesting thing that you could make it out that way. Over the course of a year, it could make it up to basically give him the exact same money, if not a little bit more. But I do get what you mean. Like, there's no way that he's going to come in and earn Van Dijk money, Salah money immediately and earn more. If he comes in and lands in and starts earning more than Van Dijk and Trent and Alisson Becker immediately, it's going to completely fuck a locker room. And we've seen what's happened with that with Man United when Mason Mount was signed, and all of a sudden he's making more than 19 different players, and he's done absolutely nothing. It completely scuppered their locker room altogether. Jonathan, wingers wise, we've Kudus' release clause at £85 million. Myself and Paul have gone back and forth on this before yourself joined, and as Paul has mentioned many times, if we wanted him, we would have got him when he was cheap, and maybe we just didn't want him. And maybe now the fact that he's 85 million, we want him even less because of that price tag. But do you see a world where West Ham maybe take less money, considering that they're very desperate for cash?
All depends on the Paqueta situation. If he's banned for life, what's looking like it's the sentence he's getting. I think they're going to hold on to Kudus another year if the clause is active next year. And 85 million for a bang average player, I can't see us use that money. Rather straight swap Diaz with Lamina from Barca.
Yeah, his release clause is £1 billion or €1 billion, so good luck with that one.
No, but if you would have bought Kudus before West Ham, if we were interested, we would have. But 85, 90 million for Kudus, I don't see him being worth that money. All depends on how we're doing this season under a new manager, where he might not be the star. Jared Bowen can take even more steps. All depends on, as said, Paqueta. He has been a massive player and a playmaker for those wingers.
He really has, and the fact that his sentencing, essentially, as you mentioned, could be a lifetime ban, that immediately takes 85 million out of their pocket that they would have assumed would be in their pockets, out of their pockets. It is that. Hassan, a similar question to yourself. The wingers that are currently on the market at the moment, some people would say that we need to go for a left winger, such as Anthony Gordon, which makes me want to get sick in my mouth. Other people would say that we want to go for a right winger because we need depth on that side, and we have plenty of depth on the left-hand side. Who would you go for yourself, and who do you think we should be targeting from both player, profile, and price point?
For me, I think without Diaz moving on, I don't think we will go for any wingers. If Diaz goes on, I think someone like Bakayoko makes the most sense. He's young. He won't be that much high on the price. Uh, uh, on the left wing, I think we have many options. Gapco can play there. Nunes can play there. so I think Jota can also play on that wing. So I think left wing is maybe for right wing if we are looking for long-term Salah replacement. I think then we will see them with Edwards coming back, Hughes who's new here. I think we will make one or two very critical signings. Uh, I think we will wait till January for to see how Slot gel up the team, how he's moving forward, which deficiencies are really glaring. Maybe we will supplement them in the January transfer window. In this window, maybe uh, defensive midfielder and a centre back. These two signings will be made.
Yeah, possibly. I have a feeling that I really think that we already have the money set aside for a right winger and a centre back, and anything else that comes in will be put towards depth at a left wing or a CDM. And I don't think there's any CDMs in the market currently at the moment. But before we finish up for this evening, Jamie Hughes has asked us a little favour to make our Euro predictions for this evening, as Italy and Croatia face off in 10 minutes, and Spain and Albania face off as well. So I'll go around the panel. I'll go clockwise. So I'll go Paul, Jonathan, and then Hassan. So Paul, picks for this evening. Do we have Albania or Spain? And do we have Italy versus Croatia? Give me your picks and scorelines and what you think will happen. You're muted, Paul.
For me, I think it's.
There we go.
There you go.
I think Spain is going to romp. I don't see Albania putting much of a fight against Spain, especially Spain being relaxed. They're already qualified. They just need a point to make sure that they win the group. So I won't even be watching a game. I'm very interested in the other game, because that Italy game is going to be a really, really good game. Croatia have the talent to beat Italy, just that I think they're a little bit too slow in midfield. You know, they're getting a little bit old in the tooth, but sometimes some of these old experienced players, can just have one more performance in them, right? So I am going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say Croatia will beat Italy 2-1. I just don't see Italy's midfield is decent. Don't get me wrong, and their two centre backs, both left-footed, are also very good players. I don't see Italy with the firepower to trouble top teams in the Euros. So, I mean, Barella in midfield is a train, is a horse, but I just have a little feeling that Croatia is the more desperate team, and even though they're older in terms of average age, I just think that there's enough quality there, and I think Croatia will pull it out.
Fair enough. I think that Italy game is a coin flip, to be perfectly honest. I think Spain walk Albania, but I think that Italian game is a coin flip. Jonathan, your predictions for Spain versus Albania and Italy versus Croatia, who do you see winning both? And is it just going to be a very simple Spain and Italy are both going to win?
Spain have a very rotated team out, but I think they will win easily 4 or 5-0. Italy, Croatia may go down to the last minute. 2-1 Italy. GS on 90+3.
No problem. Hassan, same question. Who do you got picked?
Yeah, I think Spain and Albania is straightforward. Spain will win. For Croatia and Italy, I think Italy will win because at these crunch matches they have that fighting spirit and they come together. Croatia, with many players retiring, I think they don't have that finished articles in them. They are not the old Croatian team, so I think Italy will get through.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think Paul mentioned a great point here in Italy sitting back and attacking on the counter. I have the formations here in front of me for both games. Bear with me 2 seconds now. We're going to have a look here. We don't really need to look at the Spain game, to be perfectly honest with you, as we've seen that's going to be. So Italy are lining out in the 3-5-2. They have Calafiori, Bastoni, and Di Lorenzo as their centre-back 3 pairing. Donnarumma as their keeper. Right midfield, or right winger, should we say, is Darmian. Then we have Barella, Jorginho, Pellegrini, and Di Marco, the others across the midfield. And then we have Redigui, and we have Raspadori as well up front for Italy. And then on the Croatian side, we have Gvardiol, Pongracic, Sutalo, and Stanisic as their back 4. We have Modric, Borzovic, and we have Kovacic in their midfield. And then we have Palisic and Karamicic and Sucic as their a lot of chiches in that as their front 3. It's an interesting one to see. I think that midfield of Italy will dominate the game, and I think that's where they'll end up winning it. And I think, as you mentioned, Jonathan, should I say, excuse me, Chiesa could come on and very, very well influence that game as a bit of a super sub. But with that, and it's funny as well because Italy are ranked 9th and Croatia are ranked 10th in FIFA rankings, so it should, on paper, be a very close game. However, we are going to finish it there. We're going to let everybody go away for watching these late evening games, and hopefully everybody tunes in to see the Spanish game and the Albanian game and the Italian game and the Croatian game. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. If you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe, and make sure you have your notification on for all future streams and videos. And I just want to thank Paul, Hassan, and Jonathan for joining me on this evening, and I want to thank everybody for joining us with just over 2,500 people watching across YouTube and Twitter. So thank you so much for joining us. Hope everybody has a wonderful evening, and we will see you guys again tomorrow. Bye-bye.